Hi, my name is Maura Jackwis, and today I'm going to be discussing climate change and the Green New Deal and why you should support the Green New Deal. So, according to NOAA and NASA, the 2010s were the hottest decade ever recorded in the history of recorded temperatures. And according to Christina Lyons, with the CDC researcher, only 27% of Republicans and 66% of Democrats believe that climate change is an issue that we should be taking seriously and we should be taking actions to solve. Unless we work together, we are eventually going to pass a threshold by which we can no longer stop the acceleration of climate change. We are still below that threshold, which is good, and we still have time to fix things, but we really need to get our butts in gear. So every single person will suffer, not just Democrats or Republicans, which is why we need to look at this problem as a whole and decide how we're going to move forward. So, humans are 100% to blame. There is undeniable science and research that supports this, and today I'm discussing how we're going to use that research to solve climate change. So, I'm very concerned about climate change, and I did a lot of my own research over the years to really come to this decision. And I'm here today to persuade you to support climate change legislation and to support the Green New Deal and other efforts from your representatives to help solve climate change. Alrighty, so first I'm going to describe what the situation is right now on Earth, where we are, and what things could potentially look like in the future. Next, I'm going to describe the steps we're going to take to hopefully solve climate change. And third, I'm going to illustrate for you what an ideal future where we have the Green New Deal and we have conquered the problem of climate change, what that future would ideally look like. Alright, so now that we know the order, let's get into why humans are 100% responsible. So, there's undeniable proof and evidence by many, many researchers across a broad spectrum of fields that suggest that humans are responsible, both for the increase in CO2 levels and increase in pollution. So, with climate change, with global warming, comes an increase in hurricanes, which an increase in temperature plus an increase of hurricanes means stronger storms that are carrying a lot more water, which cause a lot more damage. So the number of hurricanes is staying about the same, but it's rising. However, the number of Category 3, 4, and 5 hurricanes, which get progressively stronger and more damaging, has been increasing over the years, which causes massive damage and can absolutely wipe out entire coastal towns and cities. The scientists for the United Nations in the CDC article claim that up to 70 to 90% of all coral reefs will eventually die off if we surpass the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold. Now, why is this important? Well, not only are coral reefs important and they look pretty, they are also responsible for a quarter of all marine life. Either marine animals are born there, they hunt there, they use coral reefs as mating grounds, or they use it as shelter. And without coral reefs, the ocean ecosystem will be absolutely decimated, which will lead to real-world direct consequences for humans. So this is what an image of a healthy coral reef looks like, and this is what a bleached coral reef looks like. That is absolutely dead. There are no living animals in there. So another natural disaster that's been increasing with global warming has been wildfires. So wildfires have burned over 3 million acres in 2020 alone in California. This has been the most devastating year on record for wildfires. And there's a couple reasons why. Global warming has caused an increase in length of droughts and the intensity of droughts in California and other surrounding areas. There's been a lack of humidity and a lack of rainfall, and an increase in dry, hot winds, which has just fueled wildfires to go even hotter and even faster and spread even quicker. Senator Feinstein, Democrat, says, "We can fund all the firefighters and air tankers, but we will never be able to get ahead of these crises unless we make the necessary investments needed to reverse the curse of climate change." So this was the amount of acres that were burned total in 2020 compared to the years beforehand. Alrighty, so now that we know that things need to change, what are some steps we could potentially do to solve the problem? Well, the Green New Deal is an excellent place to start. For one, the Green New Deal has an excellent plan to lower CO2 emissions, as well as it has a comprehensive socioeconomic backdrop, which means that they're going to address a lot of the issues that come with climate change, but also that directly affect lower income communities more directly. So the way they're going to do this is they're going to invest in schools, they're going to invest in local businesses, and they are going to make sure that they create high-paying jobs in the renewable energy field, which will be absolutely booming in the next couple of years. So, according to Governor Martin O'Malley in USA Today in 2015, clean energy represents the biggest business and job creation opportunity we've seen in over 100 years. And one of the only reasons the U.S. is still incredibly dependent on the coal and oil industries is because of how expensive switching to renewable energy would be. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said in a House committee meeting in 2019 that as towns and cities go underwater, as wildfires rage, we are going to pay. We have to decide if it's going to be a reactive or a proactive payment. Now, the Green New Deal focuses a great deal on proactive prevention of these kind of natural disasters, including addressing climate change at its source, which is just exacerbating a lot of these natural disasters and making them 10 times worse. Instead of being reactionary and trying to solve the damage that's done by these natural disasters, the Green New Deal aims to get ahead of them and to slow down the intensity, especially. Alrighty. So, how are we going to do that? Well, one way we're going to do that is by deeply investing in the renewable energy circuit. So right now we do not have a baseload renewable energy power source. And what we need to do is spend a lot of money and really invest in building the infrastructure necessary to run a renewable energy baseload power source. So this means creating over thousands of jobs, which for high variety of jobs, everything from technicians to mathematicians to secretaries. Everybody would be included, and these would create a lot of high-paying jobs in a very essential industry. Right. All right. So, one other really excellent part about the Green New Deal is that it is non-binding. So, this means that even if the House passes the Green New Deal, which it most definitely won't at this point, it is non-binding, so nothing will be put into law. The Green New Deal is essentially a very hopeful outlook and path of one way we could potentially get ahead of climate change. The Green New Deal is meant to bring awareness to the issues and give us a path to follow. It was never meant to completely ban transportation or airplanes or ground beef or any of these other really outlandish talking points. It was only ever meant to guide us in a way to really reduce our CO2 emissions and become a healthier country overall. So, what would a healthier future look like? What would a Green New Deal future look like? Well, our grandchildren would no longer have to question whether or not their world would be viable. They would no longer have to question whether or not their grandchildren would be able to live safely and whether they would have clean or fresh water available for them. Another thing would be that corporations would be fairly taxed for the pollution and the really devastating impacts that they've had on climate change so far, whether that be through cap and trade of CO2 shares or just regular taxes on pollution. Those would help to raise a lot of taxes, which would eventually go straight back into communities and education and housing and really creating new jobs, but preferably we'd like to have no pollution at all. Alrighty, so in conclusion, I discussed how climate change is affecting the world and what a potential future could look like. I discussed some steps on how we're going to change climate change, hopefully, and prevent it from getting even worse. And third, I described what an ideal future would look like if we had a Green New Deal and we totally got ahead of the climate change curve. So, today, my intention was to persuade you to support climate change legislation and to support your representatives in their efforts to create climate change policies. And I urge you to contact your representatives no matter what your opinion is, and let your voice be heard. I also encourage you to go out and vote because that is the most direct way you can get your voice out there. And although things look bleak, things seem like they're getting a lot worse every year. Every month there's something new, a new disaster, a new tragedy, something new is happening. But we are not out of luck yet. We've not reached the threshold, and we still have a couple years, really critical years, these next 5 to 10. But we have a chance to fix things, and we should absolutely take it for our children, for our grandchildren, and most importantly, for ourselves. Thank you very much for listening to me.